So here we are, we're in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. This is a beautiful stream. I spent a lot of time here growing up. And I recently admitted on Snapchat and came out and on Instagram about how I'm actually in recovery. I'm a recovering heroin addict. I'll have 3 years in January. I started using heroin when I was 16 years old. There's a lot of things that went into it, but mainly I thought I could handle it. I thought I was smarter. I thought I wasn't going to be like everybody else. They might get addicted, but I would know better. That wasn't the case because I lost about 6 years of my life to that drug. I didn't even get on social media until I got clean. And I got on social media as a way to kind of advertise myself as an escort or a dominatrix, hoping it would bring in clientele. But what ended up happening was so many females I met through Instagram and just so many other empowering ladies. And it made me a little bit more comfortable with my skin just because the way people were reacting or giving me feedback. So I recently decided to come out about it because it's a huge part of my story. It's a huge part of who I am. And I'm hoping somebody else out there who's suffering will hear this and think, you know what, she did it, I can do it too, because you totally can. And I tried everything. I think I was in rehab about 24 times in total. And that includes not just rehab, but institutions like mental health. And I struggled really bad. I could never really get clean. Every time I got out, I would get high. Even went down and did Ibogaine as a form of treatment. I have a lot of reminders all over my body of who I used to be. The addiction, how bad it got. And in a lot of my photos, especially on Instagram or wherever, I learned how to work my body. I learned it so the fact that you would have no idea I was covered in scars. Even with my clients, there was a way I could walk or stand or sit, and I knew how to get away with hiding a lot of stuff. The reason why I didn't feel comfortable enough to come open about it was because since I'm in the sex industry, I felt if men found out that I was a recovering heroin addict, they wouldn't want to book me, they wouldn't want to see me, they wouldn't want to pay me. All my regular clients, once I've seen them about once or twice, and I've got a good vibe off of them, I always tell them my story, and I always tell them the truth. For me, it's important that it's not the first thing I reveal, because I want you to get to know me for me, and then find out about that later. So we're gonna do a tattoo and scar tour of my body. I have a few of them, and I am still very self-conscious about it. A lot of people just assume through Instagram and through social media that I have tons of confidence, and I don't give a fuck. Well, I don't give a fuck. There's tons of things I'm self-conscious of. I think everybody is self-conscious of things. And the main thing is my scars. So we're gonna start with my scars. I'm trying to think about the first one I ever got. And I think it would probably be these ones here. If you look, there's some small discolored circles running up here. Luckily, I found an artist who was willing to go over. You can see another scar through this tattoo there. And you can also see some small slits here, as well as here. I was an IV heroin addict, meaning I injected into my veins starting at 16 years old. I was starting to inject. So when I was out in Colorado, I was shooting black tar heroin, which is different from the heroin on the East Coast and different from a lot of other heroin out there. Black tar is dark, it's muddy, it's gross. It's embarrassing to admit, it's embarrassing to show because that's how desperate I was. I didn't care about marking or destroying my body at that time in my life. Today I look at that and I think, what the fuck did I do? This was an abscess that had to be drained. I think I've had about 7 surgeries for abscesses so far. This slit here, they had to cut open. These 3 slits, they also had to cut open to drain an infection. Then you move on to this arm, and I have some small scars. I was a cutter when I was younger as well, very lightly. These have very faded very well. So as you can see, this was just from having blood attempted to be drawn. I think she stuck me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times today. She tried and she failed. And that's really common with me. I always have to warn people ahead of time. You will struggle to get a vein on me. I haven't even injected into my veins in 5 years, and it's still this way. This scar, this is probably one of my worst ones. As you can see, as I start to lift my arm, it goes into a bubble. This forms there, and it gets worse as I close my arm as well. So you can see this just massive bulge there of skin. And when I go like this, it's almost like an X. This was another abscess that got to about this big, and I couldn't afford to go to the hospital. One, I had no money, I had no insurance to go to the hospital, And 2, I knew I would probably be there for a couple days, which meant I wouldn't be able to get high. So I really procrastinated going on this one. When I got to the hospital, they told me that I was probably not going to be able to ever straighten my arm again. They told me that it was really bad, that it had probably gotten into my muscles, that I had no idea how bad it had gotten. And I had to undergo surgery, and I was actually in the hospital for a month. So I had to have that drained, and I also had another one drained at the same time. I actually think this one and this one were done in the same exact time they were drained. And it hurt. I mean, I was under anesthesia for that, but when I came out of it, I was screaming. So moving on to my legs, which this is the things I never show people. This is just out all the time, so whether people see it or not, I don't really care. But my legs is probably what I do the most to cover up with. We're gonna start on this leg here. And as you can see, I've got little bumps and discoloration all down my leg. This is what happened when I ran out of veins. I started injecting into my muscles. And a doctor told me to inject in my butt where there's fat, into your thighs where there's fat, or even up here in your arm where there's fat. This was another abscess, and this is about, I don't even know, 5 years old, 4 years old? And look at that. I have seen plastic surgeons, I have used topical creams, I have asked about laser removal surgery. It's an insane price. The only other thing is to get tattoos, and a lot of tattoo artists refuse to tattoo over scars because they don't know if it's going to heal. They don't want to be sued if something goes wrong. The color could look wrong. This is what I mean. When I walk around or do photos, I have my hands by my side. I hold my hands here, and I would walk like this if I was like, you know, wearing something like this, and I would hold my hand here as I walked because I don't like it. When I do photos or if somebody asks me to model, I always tell them ahead of time, and I know how to work my angle. So moving on to the other leg, and this one's a bit worse. I've got this scar which is really deep. It almost looks like a burn, like that. You can see a bit more of it. It's a big chunk of skin was taken there, and that again was an abscess. And again, you have some small discoloration, small things that just make the shape of your leg and your skin look very rippled. And this is all from injection. This was all self-inflicted. And I think that's the worst thing, is I did that to myself. It wasn't a car accident. It wasn't something that was avoidable. It wasn't something I could avoid. I could have avoided it. It was totally avoidable. And I'm stuck. I've always wanted to take ass photos. I've always wanted a nice ass. I've always wanted to be able to turn around and shake my butt. And I have the biggest scar there because I was injecting there and it got really bad. And this was when I was in Mexico doing Ibogaine. I relapsed down there on black tar heroin. So this is the scar on my butt. It looks like a massive X. And this has shaken my confidence so much, this scar. Anytime I'd be naked getting out of bed with a client or with a boyfriend, I'd walk to the bathroom clutching this. I hate this scar. It's probably the worst fucking one. And it's the deepest one. And it's probably going to be the hardest one to remove. This is probably the first one I ever would get removed because it's that prominent. So as of right now, those are my scars.